What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you are new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you're not missing any of the awesome content we have coming out. And I hope everyone is having a great Christmas, enjoying their holidays. But it being Sunday, I want to finally get back into some indie comics. With Marvel and DC keeping me so busy, I haven't really had time to dive back into the indie world. And I have a couple of issues that are on standby, but today we are getting back into Brzrkr. This will be issues 1 through 3. Now, if you've been a part of this channel for quite some time, you know I got hit with some copyright stuff specifically because of this comic. But I'm hoping with the new format that I've been using for quite some time, that's no longer going to be an issue. Now, Brzrkr is by Keanu Reeves, Matt Kent, Ron Garney, and Bill Crabtree. Published by Boom Studios, this has been one of the biggest comics to come out of 2021. So much so, this is getting its own Netflix series. But this story follows an immortal, an individual who just cannot die, living the span of many centuries, millennia. He has witnessed the entire birth of humanity into what it is today. And so, working with the US government, he is doing everything he can to find some kind of cure for his immortality. And once you guys finish these videos, be sure to check out issue number 4, which I already have posted, and issues 5 and 6 will be coming next week. And so with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we open up with this issue, we are picking up with our man B, aka Brzrkr. And he sits here while the rain pours down around him. Sitting on this bench, it appears he is more than anything just contemplating life, contemplating his own existence. That is, until an SUV pulls up and it lets him know that it is time. Getting in the vehicle, they take him to an undisclosed location, one where he meets up with a bunch of other Operators Special Forces individuals. And we see him preparing for the battle that is about to come. Because this is who Brzrkr is. He is an agent for the US government. When they need somebody to go in and just mess everything up, that is when they send in Brzrkr. And as we continue through this comic, we have two separate events that are going on. All of our dialogue, or at least the majority of our dialogue, is going to be directed towards B and his therapist. These two are currently having a discussion after the events that we are seeing taking place. And so with B going in, with them making their infiltration into wherever they're going, the conversation between him and his therapist is letting us know that this is their 1-year anniversary. It has been 1 year since the two of them has started working together to try to unlock who he is. And she lets B know that she really feels like they've made progress. In all of this time, she feels like they have forged some kind of connection with one another. And visually, what we are seeing is the full capability of what B can truly do. With him being the first one to land on the ground, he is taking out the first waves. This is absolutely nothing for him. He is an absolute killing machine, and there is nothing that can stop him. And we see the pure brutality that he has as he takes his fist and he shoves it straight through these guys' faces. And as B continues to take rounds into his chest, there is nothing that can stop him. And as he disembodies all of these soldiers, we're learning that connections for him, they are a difficult thing because connections can fail. They can hurt you at the end of the day. When you live like him, when you live forever, these people, they eventually die. They eventually betray you. They eventually end up drifting away. And so for him, the idea of isolation, of being completely alone, of not having connections, is really the most ideal way to live. But they both agree that this connection, it feels vastly different. And in many ways, she has been able to help him out, to help him remember his past. Because unlocking that past is going to help her out. And we'll get more into why that is as we get further into these issues. But Brzrkr currently trying to overthrow this government we see him just ripping guys' arms off. The Special Forces team making their way in behind him. Really, he is just a one-man army, and the other guys are here just to make sure that he doesn't go too far. But this team has come in to take down the president. And as Brzrkr takes one of these guys, they go flying out of the window. And what we're learning is that Brzrkr, he has no restraint. That it's really hard to keep him in check. So much so he takes this guy, with them going out the window, they fly directly into a van. We're learning that there truly are no limitations to what he can do, and it appears that it is almost impossible to even slow him down. And with him taking this guy down, there is an armored vehicle that is shooting appearing to be 50 cal rounds at him. As he is just taking these rounds, he charges directly at the vehicle, with him jumping up and flying through the window of this armored vehicle. He takes the guy, throws him out of the vehicle, and takes it over for himself. The president being at the airport, their mission is to take him out, to take him down, and that is exactly what Brzrkr is going to do. And so as he makes his way, the dialogue we are getting between the therapist and him is that something happened this day, something that is about to happen. It affected him in a unique way, because they keep tabs on him. His temporal lobe, it had a huge spike, with new branches of his brain lighting up. It is a possibility that he could be remembering something new. And what we learn about him is that he has perfect memory. And when we say perfect memory, he can remember smelling the Black Death. He remembers smelling all of the victims, how horrible it was, because he is a man who has lived through millennia of humanity. He remembers the sound of steel swords breaking through and breaking bones. But the only issue is his memory is perfect up to a certain point. And every day he is remembering a little bit more. And there are days that he simply does not want to remember, days that he blocks off inside of his mind. But something happened, something today that was different that made him remember. Now, as we see B arrive at the airport, we have Special Forces operators sitting on the rooftop observing what is going on, witnessing the president getting in his airplane, getting ready to take off the airfield. We see B coming in, and he is coming in with a fury. Using this armored vehicle, he plows directly into this airplane. With a head-on collision, there is a giant explosion. And in the remnants of all of the flame and wreckage, we have Brzrkr, standing completely battered, bloody. He has flesh showing that should not be showing. He is just looking absolutely rough. But even with his body bruised, lacerated, and on fire, he goes over to the president. They try to let him know that they want him alive. Not listening to the operators, we see him beat the life out of this man. And as the man sits there and he begs for mercy, Brzrkr does not stop. He turns this man into a bloody stump of a human. And with Brzrkr taking his hand and ripping his heart out, there is a young boy standing nearby, watching as all of this happens. We can only assume that it was the president's son who survived the crash. And as we look at the boy and see the pure terror that is in his eyes, because right now he is gazing upon the most ruthless, the most brutal individual that ever laid foot on this earth. And with all of the team loading back up and making their exfil, we see one of these soldiers, they give him what they call the protocol. Now, the protocol seems to be some kind of blue and red pill. Now, at this point, we don't really know what this pill does. We just know that it's supposed to be helping him remember, or at least that is what the US government is telling him. Now, that's what's going to take us to an undisclosed location for the US government, a facility where they have been keeping B at, a facility where they do all of their testing to try to figure out how his immortality works. Now, of course, B up to this point, he's experienced life so much, he knows that the government, they have their own agenda, they have their own purpose for wanting to help him out. And we see him getting patched up. Even though he will heal on its own, it does take time. And so having their technology, having their advancement, their scientists, their doctors, This will help patch him together much faster, and these wounds will heal at a crazy rate. But the idea behind all of this is they help one another. With Brzrkr helping the US government do these operations, they are helping him. But the therapist, she firmly believes that the only thing that is going to be able to help either of them is him remembering his past. That is going to be the key to everything. And she lets him know that she doesn't believe that he is some kind of god. She believes that there has got to be a scientific answer to why he is the way he is. And she doesn't believe in gods. She doesn't believe that anyone should worship him. She doesn't really want anything from him. Though that may not entirely be true, because at the end of the day, the US government, they obviously want something, and they are using her as a means to get that. Whether it be for a super army or cloning soldiers, they obviously want something from him. The only thing he truly cares about is finding mortality. And we are seeing that there is a little bit of a god complex here, because he sees himself as immortal. And if gods are immortal, then he is in fact a god, at least by that definition. Now, of course, she believes it's not that simple. But if he is not a god, then what is he? And that is something that they don't understand, at least not yet. And as they start to go over all of his charts, all of the figures, everything that is going on, he gets a little bit of a giggle out of this. And that's because he finds it funny how far the United States really has come. At one point, they were using whiskey as painkiller and hacksaws to amputate gunshot wounds. And that was all during the Revolutionary War. Now, you guys have charts, you have all of these machines, you have all of this technology, and in a way, he really sees it as them kind of being arrogant. You know, even with all of this technology, you think you are far more superior now, but at the end of the day, you are still using someone like Brzrkr to go in and take care of the things you don't want to do. But they get into the conversation of what happened that affected him so much on the battlefield today. And what affected him was that little boy. That boy who watched as he saw his father's heart ripped out of his chest. And that is because one of the soldiers came up and they put a bullet in that kid's head, saying that there needed to be no witnesses. And so when asked what he saw today, what he remembered that made his brain light up in such a manner, today he remembered something very specific. And that was his father. Not only that, he is remembering his mother. He is remembering the day that he was born. He is remembering 80,000 years ago. Now that will end issue number 1 and bring us into issue number 2. And this is where we really start to dig in on who Brzrkr is, where his people come from, and how it was possible for him to be granted this immortality. And he lets us know that his people, they were nomads. They traveled the plains, the mountains, looking for some place to settle down. And eventually they found a valley that was extremely fertile and great for a civilization to begin their growth. But the only issue with this fertile valley, it came the other tribes. And this valley being in between all of it, it became very difficult for them to defend during the seasons of harvest and so on. And so 80,000 years ago, Brzrkr was created to be the protector of this village. And so what we're learning is Brzrkr may very well be one of the first tribes that humanity has ever seen. One of the first tribes of the human race. Now, Diana, his therapist, she stops him because this is the same story that he has been telling for 79,000 years. This is also information that she has already been privy to. And so what she's saying is she wants something else, to dig deeper into his memories. Using these pills they refer to as the protocol, it is supposed to help him really find these memories, bring them up to the surface, and maybe it will help find a key to his immortality. And so he does his best. He reaches into his mind to try to find these memories and lets her know that his mother did inform him of the days of before he was born, because their village, it had constant raids every single season. the surrounding villages would band together and they would come and take their harvest, their women, and their children. And as Brzrkr's mother looks around their village, the chaos that has ensued, the dead that surround them, their harvest stolen, they believe they can no longer go on living like this. Brzrkr's mother believing that they need to ask the gods for help. The same gods that their ancestors had prayed to when they lived in those caves so long ago. The gods that she still prays to. Pray to the gods and ask them for a weapon. And we see Brzrkr's mother, she goes into the wilderness and she begins to gather herbs, mushrooms. Now the ingredients of what she gathers, we do not know yet. But those ingredients could be very crucial into figuring out exactly how his immortality came to be. The only issue is, he was never told of what those ingredients were. And it was 80,000 years ago, so the likelihood of some of these plants still existing could be non-existent. But with these ingredients, she took her husband and she went to the cave of her ancestors. And mixing everything together, we see from the bowl a bright pink flame, with her husband going outside of the cave, ensuring that no one comes in, keeping her protected. She does her ceremony. And though the stories vary between mother and father, what he was told is that a lightning strike, it came down from the heavens. This lightning strike coming down and hitting his mother. And with this lightning hitting her, we see some kind of human-like form. This form coming in electricity and making love to his mother. And as quick as the lightning came in, is as fast as this lightning leaves. Not sure if this worked, not sure what happened. They go back to their village. They find themselves resting up for the night, only to wake up the next morning and Brzrkr's mother is now pregnant. Not only is she pregnant, but she is very, very far along. In one night, she has gone 6 months into a pregnancy. Now, he was only in the womb for 2 months, so a total of 60 days until his birth. Believing that their prayers had finally been answered, they got the weapon that they wanted. Now, initially, they weren't sure if this was actually an answer to their prayers, because they were given an infant, and what they wanted was a dog of war. But they quickly learned that he is not like all of the other children. He grows at a much faster rate. Not only that, it appears that nothing can hurt him, because at a very young age, we see him going into the fire, grabbing a burning log, and not being fazed by it in the slightest. And soon, they all believed. With 1 season going by, he grew quickly. He was living proof that the gods were listening to them. And this gives a renewed strength and morale to the entire village. The only thing is, there was something inside of him, something that hungered to get out, a beast within inside of him that had one goal, and that goal was to kill. And one of his first kills is in those early years where he takes down a wolf. He takes down the wolf and he starts eating the throat out of it. And with this hunger came a desperation that only a starving man could understand. An unquenchable thirst, a thirst for violence. And instead of keeping all of this in, he had to let it out. He had to have some way of releasing all of this. And one day that comes in the form of accidentally killing one of the other children. And so they gave him a teacher to try to hone this anger, try to hone these skills in one direction, to try to make him a weapon of war, hoping that this would give him some discipline, hoping that this could give him some kind of focus. And when it got too much, when that anger built up too much and that hunger was just knocking at the door, this is when they gave him an outlet. That outlet usually coming in the form of maybe a bear or something of that nature, something that he could kill and take down and quench that thirst, at least for a little bit of time. And they also learn how quickly he heals. After having his encounter with the bear, he had scratches, claw marks, bite marks all over his body. But within a matter of days, these all healed up like nothing ever happened. And so with another season going by and another harvest stolen from them, young Brzrkr, he swore never again will another village come in and take what is ours. His parents holding him back, believing that he is just not ready yet. Appearing to be the age of 12, maybe 13 years old, they are not quite ready to unleash this weapon on everyone. And with all of this anger, he ends up accidentally killing his own teacher who has been teaching him how to do this the entire time. And so over the next season, his father takes up the reins of training him, with him hunting down wild animals, ripping them in half, with him taking hammers and breaking stone. His father is creating the greatest warrior to ever exist. Now, at this point in the conversation, we see him start to rip all of the wires off of him because he's exhausted. Remembering this far into the past, it really does take a huge toll on him. So much so that he's just done. He doesn't want to really do anything more today, and she continues on letting him know that we are extremely grateful. The US government is thankful for your cooperation and your help. The same old narrative that he's heard over and over and over again. And if there is ever questions of his allegiance to the United States, she needs to erase that from his mind, because he is working with them because he has to fight. That if he doesn't have this outlet, innocent people are going to get hurt in the crossfire. His issue with all of this is for centuries, they have been taking measurements from him, taking samples from him, analyzing him, poking him, scanning him, prodding him. Not sure if any of this is actually going to work, with his therapist informing him that it has worked. At least their protocols have been working, because he is able to remember things he has never been able to remember. Memories that he has suppressed since his very earliest ages. And so with them diving back into his memories, he is remembering the first time that he truly became himself. Picking up at the third harvest, the surrounding tribes, they came as they always do. And Brzrkr's parents, they tried to offer a truce, some kind of partnership that the tribes could work together. Now, of course, all of the other tribal leaders, they laughed at them. They laughed directly in their faces and told them, we're going to take whatever we want, like we have continued to do. With them not listening, they ride into the village. And riding into the village, this is where we see a teen boy wielding a hammer and a spear. We see him jump into action, and it is an absolute massacre. Not even the horses are left alive in this fight. We see Brzrkr literally live up to his name, with him punching through heads, throwing spears through chests, taking arrows in the back. There is nothing that is slowing him down. And as he remembers all of this, he remembers having parents, having a tribe, having a purpose. He remembers this as the last time he ever truly felt happy. Now, that will be the end of issue number 2, which takes us to issue number 3. And we continue on the story, picking up after he killed all of those other tribals. Every man who came to their doorstep had lost their lives, being only a couple seasons since he was born. But already, he had made a tremendous impact on this entire village, on the entire region. And only a couple seasons, that's when he fully became a man, or at least he looked like a fully grown 30-year-old man. And in this time, we have seen the pure brutality that he will go to, popping people's heads off, ripping chests open. This is a bloody, gory mess, and that is what he is best at. But inside his mind, he is still a child, only experiencing the world for a couple years. He is a weapon that is let loose on anyone his father deems a threat. And every time he kills, every time he massacres, he looks to his father for approval. And the tribe has begun to call him Unut. This meaning a tool and a weapon. But the only reason Brzrkr has decided to do any of this, that he continues to do this, is for the safety of their village, for the safety of his mother, his loved ones, the ones that he truly does care about. But as the days continue on, it looks like his father is growing more and more war hungry. Now having a weapon that can take down anybody, he believes that they are always in threat. No matter what, there is always going to be an enemy on the horizon. And so his father believes they need to meet them first, take them out before they ever become a threat to them. And as Brzrkr sits down with his mother, they have a conversation because he's starting to feel like he is nothing more than an object, than a weapon, something that's get pointed in the direction that they want him to go and then kills, becoming nothing more than a dog of war. And so he has to ask his mother, did you pray for a son, or did you pray for Unut? Did you pray for me, or did you pray for the weapon? Because if you prayed for a weapon, then what more am I than just a weapon? And with them going in their different directions, Brzrkr's mother going to find out where Brzrkr's father is, finding him working in the war room, preparing for their next battle. Now Brzrkr's mother, she wants him to stop, to take a break from all of this war and give the child the opportunity to figure out who he is. Now he promises her that they are nearly finished, that the war will soon be over, but they have to ensure their safety before anything else. Now geography is key, and the valley was uniquely positioned. Mountains to the east, river dwellers to the south, plainsmen to the north, and cold climbers to the west. And Brzrkr's family, they were expanding their territory, and they begin to have some doubts. Brzrkr begins to have his doubts because they travel so far from the village. How could these guys possibly ever be a threat to us? And Brzrkr's father, he lets him know that they are a threat because of their wealth. This being the richest of all the tribes, their threat is their money. That makes them stronger, which means we have to take them down. And so sending in Brzrkr and only a couple of warriors, they sent him in as an assassin. And with the roof collapsing, we see Brzrkr and a few other warriors come crashing in, assassinating the leadership, assassinating every single soldier that is in the palace. With all of the guards taken, we see Brzrkr look upon the populace. And Brzrkr remembers what his father said. His father told him, no one is left alive. And Brzrkr takes this as killing the civilians as well. And so wielding his weapons in both hands, he goes and he massacres the entire village. Sitting atop all of the dead bodies, his father comes into the town and Brzrkr asks the question, did he do well? Still seeking that approval. His father telling him that he did do good. Brzrkr trying to figure out how what he did was good. Brzrkr knowing in his core that killing this entire village was not a necessity, that it was not good. But his father tries to convince him that it was good. And that's because the children would have grown up. They would have grown up to be men who would have wanted revenge on their village. And so this stopped a war from ever happening. But with Brzrkr in his current state, he has to ask his father one question. Who is he? Who is my father? Because he remembers the day in the cave. He remembers the lightning coming down and hitting his mother. What he knows is this man is not his father. That he was standing outside of the cave as everything transpired. And picking up back at their village, we see that Unut, he no longer wants to be that. He no longer wants to be the living weapon. He no longer wants to be the tool of war for this village. That whatever he is, whatever power he has, this is something he does not want. But from the earliest of ages, we are seeing that he was being conditioned. But all of those influences, they began to splinter. And with that splintering, it comes the downfall of the entire village and a new era for Brzrkr as they make their way out, hearing of a new village, one that is plotting against them. And the rumors are they have riches beyond measure. And as they travel along the land, looking up into the sky, they see a red lightning bolt. Now, Brzrkr isn't sure of what this is, but his father, or stepfather if you will, he knows exactly what is going on. This has something to do with Brzrkr's mother, trying to reach the gods, trying to talk to them in the old ancestral way. But that did not stop them from going to the next village and taking everything from them, not leaving a single human alive, and taking any riches that they could take back to their own. But as Brzrkr is getting arrows removed from his back, he turns to his father and tells him, "You never answered my question." And he lets him know that your mother went into that cave. She communicated with the gods and they gave us you. But that does not mean that I am not your father. I am as much your father as she is your mother. And he goes on to tell him that we would be nothing without you, but they would also never do anything to hurt him. And that is where the conversation ends. And we see that his therapist is talking to an individual by the name of Stephen Caldwell, head of belief systems and ancient technology migration. And she is letting him know that they don't know anything. They haven't unlocked his DNA or solved the mystery of the amino acids, his quantum molecules. He literally is telling us that his father was a god that came in on a lightning bolt. Not sure what to do with that, but what they do know is that one lightning strike, that may be a singularity, but two lightning strikes, that means it is something that is reproducible. And so they want to keep him talking. They want to keep him remembering. All of this new tribal and geological information, all of these details is helping us locate the prime position of where his origin is. And right now, Brzrkr, he is out doing exactly what he does. With a mission accomplished, with them making their way down to Chile, it appears that they lost 4 individuals in this battle. And that is because they got too close to Brzrkr. Unable to control his rage when he is in the midst of it. If you get in his way, your head is about to pop. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 4, it's picking us up with Bee and Diana. They just got done with a session that is the last piece to all of his existence. And the dialogue we get is very interesting because Bee is talking about how he knows this is all for them to get super soldiers. He's not stupid. He's been alive long enough to have the wisdom to truly understand all of their ulterior motives. But at the end of the day, he doesn't care because he will be dead. If they hold up their end of the bargain, he will die and he will have nothing to worry about. None of this will be any of his concern. And so with Bee leaving for the day, she plays back the session. And with her playing this back, we are dropped 76,000 years in the past. And after Bee's mother seeing everything that her son has had to go through, the torment and the torture, the abuse, and really how he's just been used as a weapon by the father and the tribe. Because this isn't technically his father. His father is whatever god being or power created him. But after seeing all of this done, she went back to that cave where he was born. She prayed to the gods yet again, and they bestowed upon her a gift. And she believes this gift is the cure to his immortality, the ability to make him mortal again. And she pulls out a small trinket. It's really hard to make out what exactly it is. But the father, in a fit of rage, thinking that he could lose his greatest weapon that has gave him all of this territory and power, he takes the item and he throws it down into the pit. And as Brzrkr makes his way over to them, this is when they go silent and they are interrupted by a soldier, letting them know that the wolves are at the fences. A battle is ready to begin and they need to get out there and face them before they make their way to the village. And so Bee and his stepfather, they ride out to greet them. But they quickly learn that this is an ambush. They were set up, this was all a trick. And as arrows come raining down, we see the battle begin. And that's one thing about this comic, is these battle scenes are absolutely brutal. We're seeing the absolute brutality of humanity in the early days. But more than that, we're seeing Brzrkr truly let loose, taking men and ripping them in half like they are absolutely nothing. like it's a freaking loaf of bread. But as he tears men apart, this is when they realize that their village is getting attacked. This was all a setup to lure them away, to kill all the women and children, to burn all of their homes. Tactically, they were outmaneuvered. And as they ride their horses back, as they try to get back as fast as possible, they realize that they are too late, arriving to nothing more than a graveyard and burning huts. And Brzrkr, he loses it. Wielding a flaming spear and flaming sword, he starts killing and hacking everything in his way. And after he's maimed, beheaded, executed every single guy in his way, he goes looking for his mother. He searches through the rubble as a new wave is coming up. And behind the hut, this is where he finds her, in the arms of his stepfather. And she is bleeding out because she did not make it. And seeing this, Brzrkr is done. He doesn't want anything more to do with this. That was the only thing that kept him by his stepfather's side. The only thing that kept him here in this village. His mother was his last connection to humanity. And so he gets up and he walks away. He lets the hordes come and eat his stepfather alive. And he does not look back. Now these are memories that he has suppressed, or he has actively tried to suppress, because these are things and times he doesn't want to remember. But in remembering this battle, remembering these days, it has helped them discover many things about B, discovering his existence and how it was created, or at least trying to have an understanding of how it began. And now they know there is something out there that could cause him to die. There is something that could stop his immortality. And as B is walking away from this village, as he walks away from the flames, in front of him he is met by a garrison of men. And with B being the prime driving force, with him being the only individual, the biggest weapon that attacked all of these people, he is obviously the main target here. And we see B stabbed what looks like to death, his guts, his insides, his body ripped apart in the most brutal manner, turning into nothing but a sludge of flesh and bone. And that's where they left his body. And night turned into day and day into night. Not knowing how many days passed, after animals feasting on his remains, we see what appears to be a cocoon starting to form. And from this cocoon, we see B reaching out, because this was the first time that he learned that he was truly immortal. He learned that there was nothing that could kill him. His body could get blown to pieces and it would reform. Now, as Diana was listening to all of this, she was driving somewhere. She was headed to some kind of house in the suburban area, and going up and knocking on the door, it's the house of B. And she tells B that they need to have a conversation. They need to sit down and talk. A discussion with no wires, no drugs, just the 100% truth. So as we dive into issue number 5, we are picking up with Diana and B. They are currently sitting down at B's house, with Diana trying a new approach. While they can do so much in the lab, if you get him into an isolated situation like this, she's thinking maybe, just maybe, they might be able to pull some memories out. And Diana, she is laying everything out on the table, or at least making B believe that she is laying everything out on the table. Letting B know that she turned down Nobel Prizes because of the work she does. She has never done it for attention. She has always done it for the science, to understand the world around her in ways that nobody else could ever comprehend. And when it comes to Brzrkr, she really doesn't know where to go next. And they have made some really good progress. Just in the last week, he remembers being born, basically letting everyone know that he is a god. Not knowing really what to do next with all of this information, with Brzrkr being an unconventional individual, maybe sitting down having a conversation with him will lead to maybe some kind of uncontroversial means. At the very least, it's going to build some kind of connection between the two of them. And this is when Brzrkr, he puts on some music, and he talks about music throughout the times, saying that after all of these years, everything sounds almost the same to him. The beats, the rhythms, the lyrics, it's the same song sung over and over and over again. Every generation, every century, they have their song, but essentially it says the same thing. It's a yearning, a needing for wanting more, for wanting love, searching for connection. From the earliest primeval days that we have to the current days, the beat has always been the same. It has always been about love. And Diana asked the question, do you want to die so that you can love? And she misunderstands, because Brzrkr, he has definitely loved before. And as things look like they might start to get a little hot and heavy, Diana says that it's getting late and it's time for her to go. But this has triggered something, some kind of idea in her mind. And so with her taking off for the night, we pick up the next day. And the next day, she is suiting up Brzrkr, attaching him to some type of machine. And last night gave her an idea, giving him a little bit of a cocktail to drink, hoping that emotions, yearning, love, hoping that these thoughts will bring out some memories that we haven't seen before. And with him plugged into this giant freaking machine, not really understanding what it is or what it does, we see a giant surge of energy all coming at Brzrkr. This is a brand new protocol that they have just put into effect, hoping that it will bring out some kind of memories inside of him. And with him slowly going into unconscious state, this is when he is brought back 79,990 years ago. Thinking about love, this is the first time he ever felt that. This is the first time he ever fell in love. Sitting riverside, he is met by a giant bear, a towering monster that goes fleeing at the very sight of Brzrkr. With his glowing blue eyes, the beast wants nothing to do with him. But this was the first time that he saw her. This was his first love. And though this wouldn't be his last love, he was young and he was far from home. And sometimes he would show his true nature, but that always led to the villagers trying to brutally massacre him. And he also attempted to have children, but every time, the child never made it through birth. It was always born dead. And we see B, he is ripped apart, each of his limbs connected to a chain, and the chain held by a man on a horse. As they pull Brzrkr apart, he thinks about all of the children he has lost. Every time he has tried this, it has failed throughout all of history. And eventually he gave up on love. He gave up on that connection. But after 80,000 years, it comes around. That yearning, it shows its face every once in a while. And he would try again. And every single time, it was always the same fate. The child died. The woman he loves grows old, she dies. The people would see him as a monster and try to murder him. Sometimes successfully, only for him to come back to life and have to do all of it all over again. And so it left him wondering why. Why can't I have this one simple thing? Why can't I have love? Why can't I have a child? Why am I what I am? And with this frustration, we see him charge up, and the entire machine he is connected to, all of that energy, it shoots back out, and the entire place goes crumbling down. With everything broken and shattered around Brzrkr, with him kneeling on the ground, it's safe to say that they are done for the day. And so with sending Brzrkr out on mission, there was something more here. Diana working with the professor, they were trying to get some kind of data out of this. And whatever data they were looking for, they got it. Now that is where we are gonna dive into issue number 6 of Keanu Reeves' Brzrkr. And we are picking up with Brzrkr and Cleaver. Not just them, but also the rest of the team. Currently in the skies above Ukraine, they are out on mission and they are about to lay down some hate. Of course, sending in Brzrkr first. He goes in, and 10 minutes later, the rest of the team, they make their way in, only to be completely ambushed. With them outnumbered and almost everybody dead, Brzrkr is outside and he is going one-on-one with a freaking tank. Lifting this tank up and just throwing it. Another individual shooting an RPG at him. him grabbing that rocket out of mid-air and throwing it at the tank. With this giant explosion, it gives him and Cleaver the opportunity to exfil. With the helicopter coming in, they jump on board. And as they take to the skies, we see the ground-to-air missiles fire off. And with them firing up into the air, the helicopter is taken down. Brzrkr and Cleaver falling down to their deaths. Brzrkr grabs hold of him and makes it to where Brzrkr is the cushion as they fall. And with body parts, machine parts, flames all around them, we see that Cleaver has been impaled. A stick going directly through his side. Brzrkr completely burned. He is broken, he is battered, but he is ready to still continue on. But one thing they do know is that the Ukrainian army will be coming for them. Not only that, they have no exfil. They have to get to a safe area, an area where they'll be able to bring in helicopters without having any kind of concern. And as they come up to a river, their first thought is maybe we can take this boat and make our way to safe haven. The only issue is Brzrkr, looking back at a time where he was shipwrecked, thrown into the ocean, and almost died. So going on the sea in a boat, that's really not his style anymore. He would much rather just take the hike. And as they're making their way down the trails, Brzrkr remembers these mountains. He has been in these mountains and lets Cleaver know that everything is going to be fine. And as they sit down for the night, Brzrkr, he makes some kind of paste. This is going to help his wounds heal up. And Cleaver asking the question, how do you know these mountains? And he knows them because he's fought in them. And Cleaver also wants to know, how do you pick what side is the right side? And though there have been times where he's tried to decipher what is necessarily good, what is bad, what is politically right, what is politically wrong, at the end of the day, it always gets muggy, it always gets foggy, and it's hard to tell who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. In some situations, it's very plain to see, but in other situations, it can become very difficult. But as they rest for the night, they get up the next morning and they start traversing the land, getting up and over these mountains, B helping him every step of the way. Day turns to night and night turns to day. They find themselves against a huge pack of wolves, but Brzrkr tells him they need not worry. And that is because these wolves, they know him. Maybe not these wolves in particular, but in their DNA, their ancestors had fought against Brzrkr in the past. And back then, he let it be known that he was not someone you wanted to mess with. And so sitting down by the fire one evening, Cleaver asked the question, "You've seen so much conflict in your life, why did you pick our side?" And he tells him that there is only so much he can do to keep Brzrkr at bay, to keep the monster that lives inside of him at bay. But the protocols, they have been helping him. And for so many years, at least during peacetime, he tries to hide that violence. In the early days, he was seen as a savior, a gift from the gods. In the age of gods and heroes, it was much different kind of life for him. He was something that humanity could believe in, something that was possible, the myths and legends of old. But as the times grew on, he became something that was impossible, something that should not be. And this caused his need to hide. And so over time, hero, villain, god, it didn't matter. He doesn't want to kill, and he cannot die. He is hoping that with the science the American government is offering, that he might have some kind of morality yet again, and just be him. With them getting a little bit more rest, we see Brzrkr throw him over his shoulder, and they start hiking their way out of here. And as he is making this hike, he is letting it be known that he is kind of curious on who his father is, and he hopes one day that he might actually be able to meet him, and that if his father won't come to him, he will go out searching for him himself. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 7, we are picking up with Brzrkr and Professor Caldwell. And Caldwell, he really has seemed like the boss behind everything going on with this operation. With the doctor, the therapist that has been working directly with B, reporting to Professor Caldwell, with any results, so on and so forth. And so for all intents and purposes, this guy is the head guy. Of course, there's probably someone above him trying to pull the strings. The truth of the matter is that Professor Caldwell has had an obsession, an infatuation with Brzrkr for as long as he has been alive. But with them sitting down, they're gonna have a conversation about what just happened. Because in the last couple of issues, what we saw is them implementing a new protocol. A protocol that is supposed to really jolt all of his senses, all of his abilities. They're doing this in an attempt to have him remember where he was born. The more he remembers, the more it is going to help out the US government, but it's also supposedly going to help him out as well. Because if they can unlock the key on how he was created, on how he was birthed, they may be able to unlock the ability to remove immortality. And so with their conversation moving along, we move to the artifact that they had been sent in to take. Some kind of random pendant, an object that is thousands and thousands of years old. And this specific object, it has a very rich history, from being in the hands of Nazi Germany, and prior to that being in Russia, spending decades going around the trade of the Mediterranean Sea. This thing dates back all the way to 360 BC Egypt, but it even goes further back than that, dating back all the way to the original owner in 2300 BC, taking us all the way back to the Battle of Babylonia. And Brzrkr, he knows of this battle because he has been in this battle. He was the champion of this battle. We saw B, he fought alongside all of these warriors, only to get his hand cut off in the middle of battle. With his hand cut from his body, he still has this bloodlust. He is still massacring hundreds of warriors. But this battle was a day that a new religion had been born. A cult that would worship Brzrkr from this moment forward, with one of the warriors grabbing his hand off of the battlefield, seeing Brzrkr fight like one of the heretics of the gods. Seeing this monster just devour the battlefield. This is the day that he became a god. But it is definitely not the first time. Throughout his life, throughout his 80,000 years, there have been so many people who have worshipped him, who have seen him godlike, who have created cults into worshiping him. And so what was in this little pendant? It was what remains of Brzrkr's hand. This is at least what is left of it after all of the years of people using it in rituals, sex magic, injected all kinds of craziness. This is what remains. But the truth is, these cults preserving things like this, it does serve a purpose. And for him, for Caldwell, it serves a purpose of having Brzrkr's DNA. And at this point, you're probably asking yourself, how is Caldwell so obsessed with Brzrkr and everything surrounding him that he would track down this pendant that is really traversed time? And the truth is that Professor Caldwell's father had the obsession with Brzrkr and he passed it on to his son. So this is more or less him finishing his father's work. That is the reason that the US government hired him on to do this job in the first place, because he will stop at nothing to gain knowledge on who Brzrkr truly is. And this guy, Professor Caldwell, he is more than meets the eye. He appears to be a murderer, someone who is more than willing to kill anybody who has any kind of link to Brzrkr, because he wants their knowledge, he wants anything they have that may help him discover or rediscover what it is that is Brzrkr's past. The truth of the matter is that B doesn't even understand what he has been used for. They have used everything from amino acids to multiple other ways to try to track down the origin of his hand, the origin of the DNA that is B. And the truth is that technology, it has migrated across continents and civilizations over thousands of years because of Brzrkr. Not only that, but he is what caused the survival of technology after disappearing from many civilizations. And so while Brzrkr, he may be able to kill an entire army with his bare hands, that is not his true power. That is not his true ability. There are markings from lost civilizations that nobody else can read. Nobody else but Brzrkr. He has a knowledge of human history from the very beginning to possibly the very end. And while he may not have been everywhere and he doesn't know everything, he had literally lived through the Younger Dryas event, a period where the earth had cooled down. It is a hopeless historical blind spot. And so the professor, he has to ask, what was the lost civilization like? What were ancient Sumerians like? You lived through this world. You saw the Olmecs, ones that were supposedly having the ability of telepathy. And so what the professor is really telling him is that information is his true power. And while there's information that Brzrkr still wants to unlock, there is information that the professor wants as well. And so if Brzrkr really wants a faster way of getting results, the professor, he brings up a new protocol, what he refers to as Protocol X. And this protocol is designed to put his mind and body under immense pressure, and through that pressure, it will unlock things that his mind has kept hidden away. Because while he may have perfect memory, there are still many blockages in his mind. Not only that, he is not a GPS. He can remember what happened, but he doesn't always know where it happened. And this is kind of understandable for Brzrkr, because for him, time has truly slowed down. It has moved down to a crawl. It's almost as if time is standing still for him. He is a glacier watching the world go by him. But the truth is that even if time has slowed for him, he is changing as well. And the stress that they had put him in going through that machine, something happened. An energy surge that they had never seen from him before. And so they're hoping with Protocol X that they can push him even further. And whatever energy surge came out of his body, they're hoping for something more, something bigger. And through all of this information, they hope to find the location of the cave of where he was born. Because if they can find that location, they can check the local flowers and vegetation and maybe be able to recreate whatever his mother had done to create him in the first place. And that's what takes us to the Mojave Desert. With Brzrkr agreeing to do this, they prepare for Protocol X. They bury him 2 miles deep with no way out. And then they just want to see what happens, having him hooked up inside of a box 2 miles down in the ground, hoping that this brings back some memories, but also hoping that it brings back that power he had demonstrated, the power that resembled his father, the lightning bolt that came down from the sky and gave birth to him, the lightning god that created him. We are seeing that power, it appears to lie deep down inside of Brzrkr, and after 80,000 years, he may be able to access that power. Alright gang, so as we dive into issue number 8, the countdown has finally reached 0. As the electricity begins to pour out of Brzrkr's body, there is a giant boom followed by a very big explosion. As all of the ground forces try to make their escape, the ground all around them, it begins to crumble under the vehicles. It is absolute chaos, everybody running for their lives. The doctor going up to open up the door, wanting to see this with his own 2 eyes. That explosion, the one coming from Brzrkr, it reaches out in all directions. We see a black force of energy make its way through this vehicle, and it hits Diana right in the forehead. Having no idea what this means, something has touched her. As she falls to the ground, we see the crater created, and 20 minutes later, everybody is trying to clean up the devastation. situation. 11 soldiers have died, and a crater 2 miles wide was created. Diana has now been taken back for observation. The biggest surprise from all of this is that Brzrkr is missing, completely disappeared after the explosion. And that's because Brzrkr right now, he is traversing time, going all the way back to 80,000 years when his mother was hit with that lightning bolt. What we learn is that that lightning has been traveling for hundreds of thousands of years. And at the tip of that lightning bolt, when they zoom in on it, what we see is a man screaming in agonizing, electrifying pain. Now, the professor, he has to explain himself on how he just lost one of the greatest assets that has ever been had. The professor letting it be known that this was more or less always part of the plan. He was going to be used for first contact. It has never been believed by the professor that Brzrkr got his powers from a god. He has always firmly believed that these powers come from some kind of extraterrestrial power. And though while Brzrkr may actually be gone for the time being, they can keep pressing forward, being able to harness some of the energy that he had put off. This may help them in synthesizing his blood, his amino acids, everything that make Brzrkr what he is. Having multiple clones of him, trying to bring them to fruition. Even with Brzrkr not being here any longer, they may still have the possibility of replicating him, what the professor believes to be the next steps of human evolution. Now, of course, everybody needs to know, where is he? Where did Brzrkr go? And if the professor actually has to make an assumption, believing that he has breached the quantum realm, and right now he is currently making first contact, showing us 1 million years ago, going all the way back to 2 million years ago, and then shooting us to present day with Brzrkr floating in the darkness, saying only one thing, and that is Father. And so we have to assume that his father, whatever this is, whatever he perceives it to be, it is over 2 million years old. So it is either a very ancient and very old species, or it is in fact a god. Now the professor, he is not too concerned with losing out on the chance of first contact, because now they have Diana, her sealed up in a vat. Something is very different about her, because when she opens her eyes, we see nothing but black. This is their radio. This is their opportunity to have some kind of communication with whatever is out there, and gave Brzrkr his abilities. Alright gang, so we are picking up in issue number 9, and we have Brzrkr, who is making his way through the cosmos. As he makes his way through, this is where he sees something begin to form. As it takes shape, we see that it looks human, and so he tries communicating, and it only gives him very vague and very cryptic messages, saying that he is this place, and that his place, his purpose, it is time. Now, obviously, Brzrkr, he can make no sense of this rambling, not understanding what this means, not understanding who his father is. There are so many more answers that he needs. Unfortunately, this is when things start to go awry. We see the doctor, his therapist. She is currently locked up inside of a giant vat. We see her eyes go black. She has made some kind of connection with Brzrkr. No one truly understands what that is yet, but this could be pulling him back to the present time as he begins to fall apart and he dissipates. Outside the facility, this is where we have an egg that is ready to hatch a Brzrkr. As the therapist, she attempts to communicate with B, trying to talk to him, trying to get him to talk back. And we see her powers, they begin to spread out. Somehow, some way, she has the powers of Brzrkr. Outside the facility, we have Caldwell and some others. They are investigating the egg as they look pretty closely at it. This is where they recognize this thing is about to explode. As they try to run back into the facility, closing the blast doors behind them. That egg, the blast from that egg, it grows bigger and bigger until eventually it has demolished half of this facility. And from that egg, from that explosion, emerges Brzrkr at full power, ready to let loose. And let loose is exactly what he does. Getting inside, he starts ripping apart guards as they are loading him full of ammunition, using everything they have at their disposal. Nothing is stopping Brzrkr going on his killing rampage. As Caldwell watches from the security room, he can think of only how glorious Brzrkr looks right now. They do know that they need to get him to the incinerator, a room where they can just toast him down to ash. And while this may not kill him permanently, it will slow down this killing rampage. He continues to make his way through the halls, showing nobody mercy, ripping throats out, biting throats out, tearing hearts out. It is an absolute bloodbath. Even as they try to use flamethrowers on him, it burns his skin. He turns a red, a scarred and ugly red, but still nothing stops him. This is when he falls into the room that is the incinerator, locked in there with 5 or 6 guards. He first focuses on them, starts ripping them to pieces as they go to turn him into ash. This is where we see Diana, the therapist, coming and running in at full speed. She uses her abilities to open up the door. Getting inside, she goes toe to toe with him. She is not trying to fight him. She simply wants to know what he saw, trying to get him to communicate, trying to get some kind of words from him. He sits on top of her, and the two of them, their eyes exchange some energy. This energy exchange, it sends Brzrkr flying up to the ceiling. As he comes crashing down, he lays there as if he is almost dead. Diana going over to him and rolling him over. We see that his eyes have been burned out of his head, but still the therapist tries. She tries with everything she can to just talk to him. Alright gang, so as we dive into the issue number 10 of Brzrkr, we are picking up with B and the doctor having a conversation. They are having this conversation telepathically. Ever since she was imbued in powers, she doesn't know what the limits are. The two of them talking in their minds. She is trying to figure out where B went, and all he really lets her know is that he doesn't know exactly where he went, but somebody stopped him. He doesn't know who, but they told him to come back, not really telling him anything else other than it is time. They showed him where he had been born. He has been able to pin it to a desert in Saudi Arabia, saying that there is a bird there. This was his mother's gift, what is referred to as the red lightning. Now they have a location of where B was born. This is going to help them decipher exactly where B's powers came from, and maybe they can replicate it. With putting his body under extreme physical pressure, it is now time to face the emotional. He has to confront his mother's death. He needs to go there so that he can be free. But Brzrkr does have a question, and it's what about you? What about the doctor? She turned him off. She turned off Brzrkr, though this is something that she is not 100% certain about, because he is still healing. The question is, does he feel any difference? Is the Brzrkr actually gone? And he knows that it is not. He can still feel it inside of him, but this is something that she knows. They are talking to each other psychically, and no matter how much the doctor wanted to just be in on the groundbreaking experience of dealing with Brzrkr and everything that he is, she is now part of something greater, part of the purpose. At this point, there is no going back. The truth is, there was never any going back, but for the first time, the two of them are truly in this together. That's when Diana goes to have a conversation with Caldwell after having this conversation with Brzrkr. Caldwell knows very well that the two were talking to one another, even though their lips were not moving. But she knows where to go, telling him that it is time to prep the team, as everybody makes the preparations, pinpointing the location on the map to where B had been born. We see Diana the doctor, she has very drastic drastically changed, having a blue lightning that comes out of her fingertips. As she walks through the garden, this starts to give her ideas. This is what brings her over to the hypercomputer. With Caldwell being warned that this is going on, he goes to investigate to see what she is doing, and she is doing her part. She is getting ready to free Brzrkr. Though his freedom isn't their prime objective, she is well aware of all of this, and she knows that everybody is going to get exactly what they want from this. When Brzrkr's mother had really talked to this god, when it placed its seed inside of her, she had drank a concoction made up of various plants. Now Diana at this point, she believes that she can pinpoint exactly what that is, and she can figure all of this out. But they also know that whatever they are looking for out in that desert, it is going to be at least a mile deep. But they have gotten B to another plane of existence, getting him to what they call the bird, the red lightning. This is going to be much easier as Caldwell makes his schemes and does his stuff in the background. We don't fully understand what he is doing. We don't know what part he is truly playing in all of this. But there is an alpha operation that is about to take place. As the countdown happens, hours turn into days, and Brzrkr's body slowly begins to heal back up. They have the location. They are all now on site. With Brzrkr completely healed, they keep their distance and they let Brzrkr and Diana really go investigate and see if they can find his mother's gift. Before they head out, she does give him the concoction, able to make the plant. This is almost a psychedelic inducing drink. And because of this, we are thrown into his village. Absolute chaos, with huts burning, bodies scattered everywhere. These are memories from Brzrkr's past. But this is him confronting his mother's death. For so long, he blamed himself. Diana being there hand in hand with him, telling him to take the gift. Take the gift from your mother. Going over to a well. This is where Brzrkr's stepfather had taken that bird and thrown it into the well, wanting to hide it away, knowing that it would lift Brzrkr's curse from him. Putting his hand down to the ground, he lets his mother know that he is ready, that he is sorry, and he is ready to accept her gift. This is when the ground begins to shake, and that bird, it comes up from the ground and goes right through Brzrkr's hand. Picking up with Caldwell, there is still something going on. He has a countdown that is still going. This is when armored vehicles and helicopters come swooping in. Not really sure who this is or what they want. More than likely, it looks like Caldwell, he's sold out. He's gone to the other side. He sold this information, this whatever is going on with Brzrkr, whatever they're trying to extract from him, he believes that they can do it now. And so if he is double crossing everything he has been working on, someone may have paid him a good amount of money, and now they have the location to where everything is going down. With that crown inside of Brzrkr's hand, it begins to spread. It begins to open up, tearing through his chest, lifting him up to the sky. This little bird crown, it went from the size of your hand to a colossal giant, suspending Brzrkr in the air. He may very well get the death that he has been so desperately going after. Right, gang, so as we dive into issue number 11, it is picking us up, and we have B, who has been impaled right through the chest. The object that did this, it is a giant bird that manifested itself. What we had learned in the last issue is that there was something that had been discarded, a type of weapon that could very possibly bring the death to B. This energy surge that is coming out of B is going far and wide. More than anything, Caldwell is able to get the data. They are able to retrieve part of this power. They have been able to tap into whatever kind of energy B has. This is where we see the connection between Diana and B, with B taking her into the metaphysical blue plane. He shows her everything. As the energy surges between the two of them, Diana is fully beginning to understand what B is, where he comes from, and what is this power. But that is what takes us over to Caldwell. He was able to get the tap to work. The box has been energized and it is waiting for him. As he goes inside the box, he prepares to turn everything online. That is when the other soldiers, they begin to attack. learning that Caldwell has his own agenda, that these soldiers, they are more like religious zealots, pushing all forces onto Caldwell's position, wanting stopped whatever is about to happen. But it is already too late. We see the blue energy surging into Caldwell. As he absorbs this power, we see both Bee and Diana go falling out of the sky. But she was finally able to see it all, to see the purpose. 1,000 paths of lightning. It made him. She is able to see it, almost like pollen exploding into the wind, across the universe with purpose. Alien technology spreading. The two of them go falling out of the sky, not sure if they are okay, not sure what exactly is going on. But when they look up, they see that Caldwell, he has been empowered. We see him start ripping through soldiers just like Brzrkr would. By all accounts, it appears that he has learned how to take the power of Brzrkr. He has made himself immortal. He tears through everything. But back in the facility, this is where we see all of the Brzrkr clones. They begin to come online. They have been activated and they are coming out with a vengeance, ripping through soldiers like they are butter. This is where Brzrkr finds himself stuck between Caldwell and the other military forces. Him and Diana sitting here. Brzrkr, for the first time in his life, he feels mortal. Unfortunately, Caldwell now has the powers of Brzrkr, and he is charging directly towards them. Alright gang, so as we jump into this one, we have Caldwell, who now has the powers of Brzrkr. Caldwell turned out to be the leader of a fanatical cult. He is one in a long line of cult leaders. We see Caldwell and his men, they are charging directly at Bee and Diana. And while Brzrkr is no longer immortal, he still stands to fight. He has 80,000 years of combat experience. Even if he is not immortal, he can still throw one hell of a punch. The guards grabbing hold of Diana. Brzrkr is able to get a gun and he starts just laying down the hate. We see that Diana has also been given the same gifts. With all hell breaking loose, Diana charges in. Her and Caldwell go toe to toe. But this fight was over before it even began. We see Diana rip off all the limbs of Caldwell as he sits there bleeding out on the ground. We have Bee and Diana who get picked up, and then they drop a freaking bomb on this location. With the bomb being dropped, Bee is asking Diana if she is okay, because right now she is throwing up out the side of a vehicle. She said that the last time she felt this way, she had been pregnant. In the aftermath of this explosion, one of the cult members went to find the body of Caldwell. The only thing that was there was a head. Taking this head, he takes off. What these people had truly wanted wasn't the immortal gene. They really wanted the source of all of his power. They wanted to talk to the intelligence that had sent him here. What Bee didn't know is that they had made contact. But when this happened, it also animated all of the misguided clone projects that they had had ongoing for years. And so they burned all of them alive. But word is that Frankenbee, a Brzrkr that patched himself together with all the leftover body parts from the past missions, it formed into one, and then it just disappeared into the woods. As we are taken to a safe house somewhere in Virginia, doing scans on Brzrkr, we see that he is completely normal. He is 100% human. And we also get a confirmation that Diana is in fact pregnant. And at the rate that this baby is growing, it will be maybe a week or less before she gives birth. This is where Keever has a private conversation. the robot telling him to kill Brzrkr and preserve the woman, leave no witnesses. And so with Kiefer going into Brzrkr, they are all completely unaware that Diana and B still have a telepathic communication. So when Kiefer comes in here to end Brzrkr's life, the two of them are in communication and Diana is making her way to them. Brzrkr is buying as much time as he can, with Kiefer saying that it was an honor to serve with Brzrkr. He pulls up that pistol, he gets ready to take the shot, and all the lights go out. That's where Diana walks into the room, telling Kiefer not to move, saying that she was able to turn off the lights by cutting the flow of the current, that she can do the same thing with his heart if he decides to do anything stupid. Kiefer, not being a dumb man, says that he understands. And so B and Diana, they take off, the little robot saying that this is not yours. All of this belongs to us. The baby, the powers, all of it. With black lightning coming out of Diana's eyes, we see that robot explode. That is what takes us to Tuscany. It looks like there is some kind of operation that is going on here. And in the southwest, we have B and Diana who are meeting up with some old friends. They heard the news that Caldwell's head had been recovered. But it doesn't take long before the birth is about to happen. And when Diana does give birth, she gives birth to 2 children. She has twins. And these children, they grow fast, just like Brzrkr had done when he was a young boy. But he has seen that they don't Brzrkr, hoping that maybe these kids just could have a normal, regular, everyday life. But one night when they are sleeping in their beds, they are awoken to a buzzing sound, to lights in the sky, telling the children to get inside. Diana using her powers, Brzrkr loading up every weapon he has. They go to fight off this army. Men rappelling from the helicopters. Brzrkr is just laying down the hate. Diana taking out as many men as she can. Brzrkr gets shot in the hand. Taking a grenade and throwing it onto a helicopter, he is hit by the blast. This blast sends him flying back. That is where we have Reaver landing on another helicopter. He comes in saying to secure the children. And B and Diana, they know exactly what is about to happen. The blue in those kids' eyes, they go full Brzrkr. They start tearing apart these soldiers, ripping them limb from limb. When B shouts to stop, the children do. Kiefer being the only man left alive. Kiefer goes over to B and he thanks him, but he also tells B that he's not going to make it. Diana tells Reaver to start walking, and she kneels down by her beloved. This mortal man is going to meet his death. He is going to meet his maker. Thanking Diana as he slowly fades into nothingness. The children asking if he is gone, and he is. Brzrkr has finally died. They bury him and they bury the weapon that was able to take away these powers. They use it as a marker for his grave. Days later, these children almost full adults at this point. Diana waking up from her sleep. The children say that it is time. It is time for them to start their new life. She's not really sure what they are talking about, but they say this, that they are going to go out and they are going to grow. They are going to go plant their seeds. In an abandoned church in Tuscany, we see that Caldwell is coming back to life, that he is still imbued with this power, and his body is slowly coming back together. We see the Frankenbee who is out here still in the world, trying to find his place, trying to find his home. And then we have the children. They have made their way into the city, they have made their way into a bar, each of them meeting a partner, and then they go off. What they are doing is trying to repopulate whatever it is their power is. They are trying to recreate it here. And as Diana stands on a cliffside, she calls out to her beloved. She calls out to B telepathically, asking if he can hear her. He says that he can, asking if he can make it back. He says that he can, that he will find a way. But we see that Brzrkr, he is somewhere very alien, saying that he can make it back, but it might take him a while. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. They definitely left room for more comic. Now, I haven't read anything that says that there's going to be a continuation, but we have to assume that this story isn't over. There are still left so many open stories that have yet to be closed out. We'll start off with Frankenbee, a berserker that was put back together. The question I have, does it have the same consciousness, the same memories, and the same thoughts as Brzrkr? Or is this a completely separate entity with the same unique powers? And then you have Caldwell. Caldwell now given the power of immortality. We see that his body is coming together just like Brzrkr's had done time and time and time again. And Diana, miraculously getting pregnant just like Brzrkr's mother had 80,000 years ago inside that cave. Now, having children for Brzrkr was never something that was in the cards for him. But what this is really looking like is that there is an alien civilization that had sent Brzrkr 80,000 years ago. And while it doesn't go into detail exactly what is happening, I am theorizing that Brzrkr was sent first. He was sent to be the test subject, to see how this would work on this planet, to see if wherever he comes from, everybody else would be able to populate this place. Once they got to the point where Diana was able to more or less unlock everything about Brzrkr, she was also given the gift. More than that, she was also given two children by this alien race that are exactly like Brzrkr, except they are able to go out and have children. This looks like the beginning of an invasion. This looks like the beginning of the end for humankind. That this immortality that was only for Brzrkr, it is now branching out. It is growing. They are planting the seeds, and these are about to bloom. But the biggest reveal is Brzrkr still being alive. 80,000 years, his powers taken away, and him dying. He wakes up on an alien world with 3 suns, with creatures and vegetation that we know is not native to our planet. And so while this is the end of this 12-issue series, this is only the beginning of our story. This is only the beginning of Brzrkr. So let me know your thoughts, let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything going on with this series, be sure to check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything that has been going on with Brzrkr. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership, much like Patreon having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50. From loyalty badges to getting comics every single month. Not only does this help out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.